But other than that, I will turn over the table and I'll just break and have a six.
And it is still morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. How we all doing?
Good.
Fantastic. Way back when I had hair longer than yours, young lady, I was a disc jockey. Okay, and that's prior to my truck driving days. But in any event, you guys, if you want to refer to me as AJ, that's who I was as a disc jockey. I was AJ McKay from Tampa Bay, FLA. I did the 107.5 morning show for a lot of years until they changed the format. They did go country, and I hit the road. So, and I'm not knocking country. I like country music, but anyway, thank you very much for having me, Dr. K. Kudos. Your 147-page lecture notes served me very well, very well. In addition to the experience that I've accumulated over 25 years in the industry, the notes that you prepared really did close a lot of gaps in my understanding of the industry that I've been in for a long time. And I hope you guys have had an opportunity to read through it. And I don't want to make this sound like a recruiting seminar, because it's not. But I love the industry that I'm in. I've been in a long time, and I think you'll see that in just a little bit. I want to just touch on our introduction a little bit. I know Ms. Harms, I think she printed it out for you, and I don't know how many of you had a chance to kind of go through it briefly, but I just want to hit on it. This basically covers what I'm all about, okay? I'd like to thank each and every one of you, and anybody in the class right now, chemical engineers, anybody? No? I am a tree lover. I'm a tree hugger. And the chemical engineering field developed DEF, diesel exhaust fluid. Who would have thought that diesel exhaust fluid mixed with the carbon emissions from tractor trailers would make a byproduct of H2O, water. That's what's coming out of the exhaust systems in tractor trailers today. So to chemical engineers out there, whether you're in this class or anywhere, it doesn't matter, thank you, thank you. And for all mechanical engineers out there that design the seat I sit in and the vehicle that I drive, thank you. They say that America stops if truckers stop, but I told Kim this morning that America stops if engineers stop. So you guys rock. You rock. Thank you. This isn't a presentation on the 50 Shades of Grey, okay? But I'm going to try to make it interesting and fun for you guys. It's been my life's work. It really has. I've spent over half my life in the industry, and it's been exciting for me. I've done a lot of things, and some of your questions that you guys, I did briefly go over some of them, were fantastic. I really appreciate those questions, and I'll try to address those today. And also bear with me, I'm not uncomfortable speaking, but I have never done anything like this. Ms. Harms reached out to me several months ago just to pick my brains about my knowledge in transportation, and as logistics applies to that, we started collaborating, going back and forth. I wrote a paper, gave it to her, she loved it. We talked, and I said, you know, I'd be willing to come down and present. She's like, wow. Dr. K got a hold of it, and he's like, oh yeah, that's great. So here I am, guys, here I am. Let's see, I'm gonna try to close right through this. Oh, my official title, I wrote this down, and somebody actually commented on it. I am not a transportation logistics time management specialist. I am a truck driver, okay? I'm that pain in the butt guy you get behind on the highway, that's me, okay? I took a business course back in 2000, St. Petersburg College, as a non-degree seeking student in business. And my professor said that I had to write a paper and I had to change my job title description. And that's what I came up with. Instead of truck driver, I'm a time management, transportation, logistics specialist. And essentially, that's what we are. That's what we are. Although, I am not behind the scenes, in a desk, at a computer, looking at models and saying, okay, we need to move this much freight, this far, how are we going to do it? That's not my job. My job is get that load from here to there as quickly as I can do it, okay? So, anyway, moving on. I'm going to get right into the meat and potatoes of this thing. If I can make it happen. Let's do this. I started driving in 1993, professionally, full-time. This was approximately 13 years after President Jimmy Carter signed into law deregulation. Just deregulated the industry. You can imagine it's much like the airline industry. Didn't matter who you flew with. When you wanted to go from point A to point B, you bought a ticket. It cost you X amount of dollars. Well, freight, back in the day, it was miles, dollars per mile, how much weight you were moving. It was all regulated. Rate bureaus decided what it was going to cost to move. Jimmy Carter and his administration looked at it and said, you know, if we deregulate the industry, it's going to create jobs, it's going to foster competitive business models for everybody that provides the service, and it did. It absolutely did. I came into it a decade, more than a decade after this was signed into law, and I was still seeing the ripple effect of this particular legislation. Amazingly, we were hated. Truck drivers were hated. I worked for a very large company. Some of you made comments in your the questions that you submitted to me about basically the cost. We're talking businesses were put out, completely out of business. There were trucking industry, when they went through this change, there were companies that could not compete because once deregulation happened and the competition became so fierce for that business, the smaller operators could not compete with the large ones. I worked for a company that had over 10,000 trucks, 30,000 trailers, and they were moving loads that they were only making $28. That was their clear profit on a load, average. A small-time operator or an independent truck driver could not do that. Absolutely couldn't do it, okay? We were hated. I drove for this company, and because I drove for this company, it was bedlam sometimes. When I crossed into Canada, the Canadian drivers hated us worse. Cursed us, absolutely cursed us. Physical violence, drivers took seriously. It was bad. It was really bad. But that's neither here nor there. Very importantly, this is what came from deregulation. When the competition became so fierce, logistics companies started to crop up, okay? The trucking industry was just literally falling apart on itself. It couldn't it couldn't maintain status quo, okay? Had to change. Logistics companies started to form. They offered services to shippers to get their products to market more effectively and efficiently. And what you saw was companies that took advantage of these logistics operators that came in and took over their operations. It was very, very interesting to see in the time that I started. This was a huge movement, and amazingly, we came in and took over segments of businesses that instead of, and I'll use a paper mill for an example. they moved their own products. We came in and we took over their movement. The paper mill would get rid of their entire fleet of trucks. All of their drivers went away, totally went away. My company came in with drivers, equipment, personnel, plopped it right down in their operation and started managing the movement of their products at, in some cases, a fraction of their original cost. Make sense? Okay? This company's paying their drivers, their benefits, and incurring all the costs of operating their equipment, which is extremely expensive. And all of a sudden we come in, no longer do they have to worry about the driver's benefits or the maintenance or equipment, the cost of replacing equipment. We took it on, the company took it on. And this is where I got to see the workings of how industry actually meshes. And it was amazing. I've seen so many things. And it's not only the transportation and logistics that I saw, it's what you guys, what you develop, the industry, how it works. When I take a load of 40,000 pounds of potatoes from the Midwest and take it to a facility in Golden, Colorado, and they pick up the whole thing and drop it, the whole truck and trailer, drop the load right onto a conveyor belt, and it gets cleaned and goes through a process and gets turned into potato chips. And then I load that same load of potato chips right back on the truck, and to market I go, right to Walmart. They literally, I just picked up the load of potatoes in the field, took it to Golden, Colorado, where they make Golden Flake potato chips. They make the potato chips, put it right back on my trailer, and I'm gone. Right to Walmart's distribution center. But what we've seen, though, in part of the logistics is that instead of the mass storage facilities like Walmart and Target and some of the other bigger box stores, they started, what logistics has made possible is on-time delivery. And instead of storing it and transporting it to market, it's literally ordering it and having that order delivered to a destination point on time, eliminating storage altogether, eliminating it altogether. And that was what the strategy was behind President Jimmy Carter's legislation, was to not only foster the competition in the marketplace, but to drive the cost down. It was to actually benefit the economic conditions in this country. And it did. It did. We saw that literally for the first time, and you can research this, we saw the cost of products starting to drop. Now, it didn't necessarily reflect at the market, in marketplace where you're actually making the purchase, point of purchase. But what it did was affect the cost to, not consumers, but to the retailers. And that enabled them to compete a little more aggressively in marketing. Some of you had asked about how I was able to meet movie stars and sports figures and everything. I also worked in mobile event marketing. I drove a $3 million truck for Sony PlayStation for 3 years. I drove the PlayStation Experience. I toured with Ozzy. I've done the X Games, Do Action Sports. I've done 3 Super Bowls. And in doing those, having a major sponsor like Sony laying out millions of dollars for me to bring this multi-million-dollar truck into an event, I got to meet some really cool people. I got to meet cool people. Literally bumping elbows with movie stars and the game before the game, and I've been to 3 Super Bowls, and these guys, literally the team is playing on the truck Madden football, and for 9 years straight, the winner of the Super Bowl competition on the truck determined the winner of Super Bowl. These guys literally came on, the 2 opposing teammates on the truck playing, and that's the way it was. But anyway, I digress. It's a very wide, expanding field, transportation and logistics. And I mentioned to Ms. Harms that if you guys can relate to even just getting to this class, you're using logistics. And whether you come from a large family where mom had to juggle music lessons and dance and sports and all the other activities that you are involved in as a family, it's logistics. And that is what logistics and trucking is. It's just looking at the freight base that you have, where does it have to go, what is it, and how are we going to get it there? And thank you, Dr. K. Again, by tying it all in, I went in further than just deregulation and trucking. It was the railroad. When this happened, deregulation happened, and it saved the railroad itself. The railroad was literally saved. They started because the competition became so fierce. In order to meet the need, they started putting freight on trains. Okay? The railroad was dying, literally dying. Now all of a sudden, how are we going to move this freight more efficiently, more effectively, and cheaply? The railroad was the answer. And that is exactly how they combated the storage issue, by eliminating large distribution centers, big ones, where we're housing just tons and tons and tons of consumer goods. When you're looking at the amount of freight that's being moved on a daily basis, millions of miles, hundreds of tons of consumable goods every day, they're on the rail, they're in trucks, they're in motion. It eliminated storage completely. Totally got rid of it. Saved a lot of money. Saved a lot of money. I don't know what happened to my screen. I timed out. Anybody have any questions on some of the stuff you submitted earlier? Anybody? Think of something? Anybody have a question that you had submitted earlier I may not have touched on just yet? There you go. That's it. That's where I was just at. Prior to deregulation, any distribution centers were huge and needed to be just-in-time delivery. I worked it. Hot freight. Hot freight, organs, human organs. Custom critical, FedEx custom critical. Just, it's just noted as just-in-time freight. Very, very high dollar. Very high dollar. And this shipment has to move. A lot of these trucks bypass inspection stations. They're cleared, they're pre-cleared, and that truck just rolls from point A to point B as fast as they can get it there. It's flown by plane over distance, gets put on ground transport, and gets to where it needs to go. Medications, sensitive computer equipment, all of this is moved a lot of times just in time. Expedited freight, and your freight costs as well. Freight costs based upon what it is that you're shipping. And Dr. K makes a point. I was absolutely blown away by the numbers. Blown away by the numbers. Trillions of dollars in costs. And it's truly amazing that our economy isn't worse off than it is, to tell you the truth. I mean, when we see costs rising right now, I really would like to touch on the DOT regulations momentarily. My pay as a driver has risen exponentially over the years. I started driving in 1993 for 19 cents a mile. I currently finished off with my last company, which I just changed in January, this 4th of this month, but I was making 60 cents a mile. And if it was hazardous, I was making 65 cents a mile. And part of that is the DOT regulations that govern the hours of service. this is vitally important in logistics in that I'm responsible to get that load from point A to point B, but in order to do it, I have to conform to hours of service regulations that are governed by the Department of Transportation. So I can only drive 11 hours a day and 14-hour total. My day cannot be longer than 14 hours. So at that point, I have to take a 10-hour break. This has to be figured into when getting that load from point A to point B, looking at the time that I have available to operate and when it has to be there. Team operations, and I'm sorry guys, again, I haven't done this before, so please bear with me. Let me back up a little bit. When I first started driving, no cell phones, no computers, none. I had to get to a payphone to call in for anything. A work assignment, to pick up or deliver a load. Everything had to be done manually. When the technology advanced in the mid-90s, I saw the biggest change. And I had an onboard computer. We called them OBCs. They were wonderful, wonderful. Really drove efficiencies. It saved time, and they were able to then start tracking loads. And I mean, a shipper could literally look at where any load was at any given point in a day, anywhere. They were able to track it. They were able to know. And plus, if that load broke down, if a load broke down, not only could we communicate at that point that we were broke down, but they could get somebody else out to repower it. Made a huge impact on getting the loads where they needed to be, when they needed to be there. And it has gotten better. It has gotten better. Somebody out there, I don't know who it was, had mentioned how do we track or how do we maintain the integrity of a load? Perishable goods. I don't know who that was, but thank you for that question. Refrigerated loads of produce, which I have hauled, are tracked. There is a refrigeration unit and it's set at a certain temperature. If that temperature varies by 3 degrees, satellite communication knows. Product somewhere else has to be taken somewhere else and salvaged. Very costly. But this is the technology, and you guys have made it happen. You made it happen. It's engineers that have literally done all this, and it's made my life extremely much more pleasurable on the road. Not only am I more comfortable, but the technology has made it possible to drive efficiencies to the point where it has saved billions of dollars annually. Billions. So you guys, I'm telling you, I can't thank you enough. For everybody out there that designs anything that gets used in this country, thank you. Thank you, truly. And it has made my life incredibly easy, incredibly easy. It has actually become very pleasurable to do the job that I do. I really enjoy it. I've done so much. I've had opportunities to see how America works, and it's part of the beauty of doing what I do, in that not only does it make history and geography and industry all come together for me, but it brings it to life, and I have a better understanding of how business works, how the economies work, and the world economies. Guys, I pick up a load at the port in New Jersey that came from Belize. I've got a load of orange juice that I'm loading into a tanker off of a tanker ship. They're pumping it into a tanker that I'm loading that gets sealed up, and I travel through the United States into Canada with it. It's amazing. And then, the FDA, they want to know what I'm transporting. That load has to be, it's in bond, and they know that load has been registered, and every single mile, every single product is accounted for. And the seals, you want to talk about integrity? Everything, you guys don't even think about it. When you put something in your mouth, whether it's purchased at a restaurant or in a grocery store, the regulations and how it's handled, you don't even think about it. But it's amazing. Up to 15 seals on a tank or on a trailer hauling food. One of those seals is broken, that load is trash. Done. It's not going. It's not going to market to protect the American consumer. It's that simple. So you worry about terrorism, and that's a form of it. You know, you've heard it. They could attack us anywhere. You see this? Look at this guy. This is another thing right here. Operation Iraqi Freedom. This is the real deal, okay? The real deal. Now this is not it is my jacket. It was given to me as a gift from a very dear friend of mine who went to Iraq. Logistics and trucking. Military. He's moving diesel fuel up the line to our ground troops. That's what it's all about. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it's here or halfway around the world. And it doesn't matter if it's on a truck, it doesn't matter if it's on a plane, on a ship, on a train. It's all logistics. It's all logistics. And it all ties in with everything we do. Everything. Let's see. Where are we at? How are we doing, Kimmy?
About a half hour to your 15 minutes. About a half hour to your 15 minutes.
Getting back into facilities. Very, very important that product, make, market. Think of Christmas. Huge amount of freight travels between the end of October right up to the week before Christmas. Massive amounts. And this is done based upon projections. Retail markets project sales. They order product in advance, literally projecting what's going to be purchased before it gets purchased. They're not going to store it. They're not going to do it. So they order these shipments. They're regularly scheduled shipments. This load has to be here on this date. It literally goes from the truck onto the shelf, disappears, next truck comes in, and it's just constant rotation. You've eliminated the storage of this product. It's logistics, it's planning, it's communications. This is how it all works. This is how it all works. And part of that, when you look at the DOT regulations of hours of service, how much I can drive, the hours that I have to drive, it's computer regulated. Years ago, I used to strike lines on a piece of paper, basically, a logbook. And whatever I wrote down, that's what I did, right? Can't do that anymore. Can't do it anymore. Right? Everything is done by computer. I have a little black box in my truck, and I tell it my duty status. The minute that truck starts rolling, the clock starts ticking. At the end of 14 hours, that truck stops. It has to. Can't drive beyond that. If I do, I'm in violation of hours of service regulations. I'm facing stiff fines, and I can't erase that information. The data is there, it's collected. That's the way it's done. So how do we combat that problem? Well, we put 2 truck drivers in a truck, and I've done that too. Team driving. Truck never stops, because each driver has 10 hours or 11 hours to drive. You have 14 hours in your total day. 14 and 14 is 28. It's only a 24-hour day. So that truck literally can roll round the clock, and I've done that. So you move this freight very, very quickly, get it from point A to point B, pickup, delivery, done. Relays. Relays are another way, and I've also done that. Service parts operations for General Motors. Automobile, you wreck your car. You have an accident, whatever. It's raining and it's crappy out there and you bump somebody. Those parts got to get from Detroit or wherever they're coming from, distribution centers, they have to get to wherever your dealership is that's going to fix your car. Well, they run these trucks in a relay. So they'll have a driver drive it to a certain point. He stops, giving him enough time to get back to his starting point legally. Another driver picks that load up and continues on down the road. Okay? So in other words, all we're doing is driving efficiencies. We're taking that, logistically, we're making that load get where it has to, within the hours of service regulations that the Department of Regulations said we have. And that's all guys, that's all highway safety. All highway safety. Fighting loss of life. And I've seen a lot of wrecks over my 24 years. And this is helping. It's helping a lot. Keeps drivers not only honest, but keeps them from getting fatigued or totally from overdriving. And I've done that too. I've done it too. Let me see. Many years ago, you know what, I'm going to use Chicago for an example. Chicago, old city, was never built for the types of vehicles that we operate today. 53-foot trailers, box, or van trailers as they're called, are quite common. Chicago was not built to accommodate a 53-foot trailer. 28-foot trailers were common back in the day when that city was being constructed. The bridges are very low. It is a challenge to circumnavigate Chicago with larger accommodation vehicles. But a way to combat that issue was to put two trailers together. And I've done that too. Triples, doubles and triples are quite common. 28-foot trailers coupled together enables one driver to pull a number of trailers together. In upstate New York, they will travel on the New York State Thruway with triple 48-foot trailers. In Canada, they pull triple 53s. These are road trains. They're not legal in the United States, but this enables a company to utilize their assets, their equipment, most efficiently, maintaining control of costs, but yet moving the product to market as quickly as possible with the minimal amount of manpower. It's been an interesting ride, guys. It really has for me. I've seen a lot of changes, and I've really enjoyed the field. I can't begin to explain to you that the impact in moving people. I work for the Upper Pinellas Association for Retarded Citizens, and I ran their transportation department there. Logistics, and there was a question from somebody out there about that as well. How do you look at routing? How do you manage your equipment and efficiently? Well, a system's in place already, but in that, operating that transportation department, I basically inherited, if you will, a core territory. Okay, it was an area that we're operating in already. We had a new client who needed to take advantage of the services that were being provided. I had to look at that location and work it into a schedule or a route that was already established. And it's not hard. It's not. This isn't rocket science. It's really not. What I can say is, from a transportation standpoint, as far as I'm concerned, as a driver, I see, and Dr. K made this very apparent to me, I see one side of logistics. I see the practical application of getting the job done. I don't understand really the nuts and bolts of making it happen. You know, the people that analyze all the data that has to be considered to make it happen. And those are the regulations of what we're transporting, how far is it going, what does it weigh, can it go? I mean, when you're talking about hazardous materials, explosives or corrosives or poisons, they can't be transported. Some of them can't be transported together. Some of them can't be transported by truck. They can't even be transported by truck. They have to be transported by rail only, you know, and a lot of loads have to be, they're regulated as far as where I take it, how I get it there. I can't go down, I can't even take it on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. I can't go through a tunnel with it. God forbid, if I get caught, I'm a placarded load and I go through a tunnel. Guys, I'm not talking about a $500 ticket. I'm talking about going to jail. Bye-bye. See? Somebody bring me a bologna sandwich. Seriously, it's that serious. You kill people that way. You know, if I have a wreck in a tunnel and I'm carrying poison gas, I just wiped out a lot of people. I've carried chlorine, ton containers of chlorine, would literally wipe out. I had 14 ton containers of compressed chlorine gas, enough to wipe out a small city on my truck. Oh yeah, that'll get your attention. Have somebody cut you off. It'll yeah. Believe me, guys, but I'm the type of truck driver who's, I'm a pretty laid back, relaxed kind of guy. I'm the one who'll back down. You're trying to get on the highway, I'm the one that slows up. Come on out. I'm not that one that's going to jam you up and run you all the way down the side of the, you know, entry ramp and into the guardrail. And too bad, so sad, tough luck, have a nice day. No, that's not me. That's not me. And most truck drivers, yes ma'am.
Are there certain speed regulations that your company has that are different than like highways?
Good question. Very good question. Most trucks are governed. Most trucks are governed between 65 and 70 miles an hour max speed. A lot of independent truck drivers don't have their trucks governed at all. You'll see them. These guys out there running down the highway, they look like a straight bolt of lightning, gone. Yes, they happen. But most of the time, trucks are regulated. That's it, flat on the floor. It doesn't matter if I'm running cruise control or if I got my foot mashed to the floor. That truck's only gonna, the last company I worked for, 68 miles an hour max. If my truck hits 72 miles an hour for 10 seconds, generated a critical event in my computer, overspeed. Not kidding. When I tell you this is how serious it is, I get a message on my computer from my safety department within minutes of that occurrence. What's going on? What are you doing? I literally got angry. I got angry when they started doing this. Guys, I'm on a downhill run, okay, and I'm going to talk about slingshotting right now. You guys don't understand, this truck weighs 40 tons, okay, 80,000 pounds. I don't care how big the motor is. You're on a big long uphill and that truck's chugging at 28 miles an hour. It's not because I want to do 28 miles an hour. I mean, I'm about pushing that pedal. Come on, baby, come on, give me something in here, man. Let me get up. So we slingshot a hill. If I'm going down a hill and I'm looking at an uphill, I want to build up a head of steam and push that load as fast as I can get it going. 90 miles an hour, give me 100. Push me up over the other side. Can't happen anymore. I got to hold it back. And I've got a Jake brake, an engine brake, a compression brake. I hit it. It's different stages. I baffle the engine. I can hold the truck back with compression. You guys designed it. You mechanical engineers out there. Thank you. Thank you. Smoking brakes, I've all but lit them up coming off a hill. You hold it back with the brakes, that's 80,000 pounds on, I don't care, I have 18 wheels. That's a lot of weight to hold back going down a long grade. The engine brake holds me back. So I have to watch the speed, yes. And the companies watch the speed. And it's all recorded. If I have an accident and I'm exceeding the speed limit, whether I'm at fault or not, you're not paying attention, you're on the phone, you drift over to my lane and I'm going 2 miles an hour over the speed limit and my computer tells me that I'm going 2 miles over the speed limit, I just bought the accident. It's my fault. My fault. Doesn't matter that you drifted into my lane. I'm at fault. That's the way it works. But anyway, good question. Yes, we are governed. The speed is governed, and it's all about safety. It's all about insurance. A lot of companies are self-insured for the first $1 million, $2 million, $5 million. They're reinsured after that by external insurance companies, but they're insured, self-insured for the first loss. So it's a very critical component of logistics is safety, and I had mentioned that in my introduction. That's what I hope for you guys to take away from today. I really would like you to understand that safety is huge in making logistics happen, because if I wreck that load, it's not going to make market. It's not going.
How much are the regulations in different states?
Question. Regulations by state, how do they differ? State regulations don't vary generally a whole lot from DOT, federal regulations. However, state regulations that are more stringent than DOT take precedence, and they do vary. The bridge law, for instance. I'm kind of getting a little bit off topic where logistics are concerned, but if you guys ever notice the trailer tandems, the wheels on a trailer itself, they slide, okay? They move. So if you have a heavy load, to make it balance, when I travel down the road, I have to have my axle weights have to be precise. I can't be more than 34,500 pounds on a pair of axles, and I can't have more than 12,500 pounds on my steer axle. So when I take on a load, I have to balance it out, and by sliding the wheels on that trailer, I can do that, okay? The question is, what are the regulations state to state? Well, they do regulate. The bridge law for a trailer is the distance from the drives to the center of the drive axles on a tractor to the center of the drive axles on a trailer cannot be greater than X amount of feet. And it varies state to state. And I have to know that going into each state. So when I load, I have to look at where am I starting, where am I going, how many states am I going through, and what is the bridge law in each state all the way there. Truck drivers are generally not hairy apes who just hang onto the steering wheel. And well, that's how they refer to us, really, as professional steering wheel holders. You got to know what you're doing, guys. You really do. You really have to know what you're doing. And it's getting harder and harder. I just went through the most stringent DOT physical I have ever undergone in 24 years of driving. They're serious. These real big obese guys that just kind of live on Kentucky Fried Chicken and French fries, ain't happening. You can't bend over and tie your own shoes anymore. You're not driving a truck. They're going back now. They're going back. I have a medical DOT card. It's good for 2 years, and they're going back to the doctors. If this guy just got a clear DOT clearance to drive a truck, and he has an accident because he went into diabetic shock, they're going back to the. He just got the card. The card is 3 weeks old, and he just had a wreck because he went into diabetic shock. Now they're going back to the doctor and asking him, what's up? How could you possibly have medically cleared this driver? How? Couldn't do it. Yes, sir.
How have the in-cab accommodations been for like the drivers in terms of like creature comforts? I mean, like, have an increase in comfort allowed drivers to drive those like maximum 14 hours before comfortably, where they might have been miserable before?
I don't know if you all heard that. Creature comforts, the cabs of these trucks. And I don't know if that's mechanical engineer. Who designs the vehicles? Industrial. I didn't have air conditioning in the first truck I drove. I didn't have power steering in the first truck I drove. Everything was air. You run this, there's an air compressor. It literally turns as soon as the truck starts. The air compressor is direct drive. It fills up an air tank and that runs the entire truck. My windshield wipers ran by air. Okay? What happened when I turned that truck off and I went home for a day and a half or whatever I went home for? Came back, system had a hairline crack in it somewhere and the air bled off. I couldn't even start the truck because the starter was operated by air pressure. Okay? What have you guys done? What have you done? Holy cow. My truck that I just moved out of was more comfortable than my first apartment. When I tell you, I mean climate control. My truck would start itself. I could turn it off. It wasn't. Truck burns about 1 gallon an hour of diesel. I had a system in my truck where I could set my temperature in my bunk, whatever I wanted. 68 degrees. I love 68. It's a good number. Boom, set it. Brings up the temperature, hits it, truck shuts off. Boom. You set it. 5 degree, 7 degree variance. Truck starts back up, brings it to temperature, shuts off. Right? We got gen packs now. Generators that run 8 hours on a gallon of diesel. They literally pull diesel right out of the tanks on the truck. We have 100-gallon saddle tanks, so we have 200 gallons of fuel. And that little generator is running off of that diesel fuel. And it operates all of our systems. Yes, ma'am?
What's your normal driving schedule, I guess, in terms of days on and days off?
It varies. It varies, folks. I have spent as long as 10.5 months on the road without going home.
Is that driving every single day, or do you have any days?
No. Yeah, don't misunderstand me. When I haven't gone home, that means I haven't been to my house.
Okay.
That doesn't mean I haven't had a day off. When I toured with Sony, I was on that tour from mid-January until just before Thanksgiving. And believe me, they had built-in time off. So I wasn't working every day. Normally, I really don't want to get into hours of service. It's a little complex as far as, the rules that are pertaining to it. But let's just put it this way. I can work 70 hours in an 8-day rolling period. Okay? So it's not an 8-day week. It's just, if you will, a continuing graph. 8 days. I can work 70 hours in that period. I can only work each day, I can only work, if I work without a break, I can only work the number of hours that I had worked 1 week prior. That's it. I can never exceed 70 hours, ever. Once I hit 70 hours, I cannot move that truck again until midnight when I gain whatever hours I worked a week ago. Once I have a 34-hour continuous break, my clock resets, gives me a fresh 70, and I can work 11 hours, 11 hours, 11 hours, 11 hours. If you look at 14 hours, 5 days, 70 hours. That's what I can work. I can only drive 11 hours a day. Total combination of driving and on-duty not driving cannot exceed 14 hours. That's as simple as I can make it. Yes, ma'am.
So, since we're talking about these rules on how long you can stay on the road, what about when sleep-deprived drivers are still on the road? Are there more ways to prevent that?
Well, good question. Go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Anything else?
No, that was it.
Good question. That's what the hours of service regulations were designed to do. That's why, matter of fact, January 1 this year, all operators of 10 trucks or more were forced into electronic logging. They have telephone applications right now that track hours of service. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to have a computer on your truck. You can have an app on your phone that as long as that phone is turned on and it's tracking you, you have to physically tell it what you're doing. But basically, the 14-hour rule is what they're watching, and that's what they're trying to keep track of. It doesn't matter. Think about it this way. How many of you out there just love to just go out and have a great time, and you overdo it, and you got class the next morning, you're like, damn, why did I do that? It's no different in trucking. Truck driver doesn't use his time efficiently, doesn't take the break he should have when he should have. He's, damn, why did I do that? Yes, ma'am.
How often is there another driver with you? Is there a requirement for length of drive, or like if there's a time constraint, like is that driver, are you allowed to continuously drive, switching through drives? Like is there a requirement for how many truck drivers you have?
I can tell you that most companies do have at least a small fleet of team operations. They set it up that way. Teams, they don't just stick two people together. It's kind of like a marriage, if you will. If you want to talk about your boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever kind of relationship you're in, and you guys can't get along in an apartment, try it in a shoebox. Try it in a shoebox. And I've teamed twice with my very, very best friend. He's like a brother to me. And we have done team driven for over a year in both times. And it's, you're together 24 hours a day until that truck. We used to run from Florida to California and back. California and back. That was our run. It was 5,200 miles, round trip. He was on, I was on, he was on, I was on. We did this all the way back and forth. And when we got back to Florida, we took a 34-hour break, reset our clocks, jumped back in the truck, went back to California, back to Florida. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. But as far as teams go, or the number of drivers in trucks, that's on a company. Some companies run, that's all they run is teams. Yes?
It's in your summary, if you had wheels, you've driven it, what was the most memorable experience, or what vehicle was most memorable for you?
I would have to say the PlayStation experience. It was, I call it 40 tons of fun. That truck was 80,000 pounds. It had 5 hydraulic systems on it, and there you go, buddy. There you go. Unbelievable. I launched the one in 2007, and that truck had laser levels on it. It was incredible. This thing would literally level itself, and it had to be plumb, absolutely plumb, because when you talk about the sides of this thing opening up and then walls dropping down, a stage floor coming down, and then when you built it out, in order for the doors to even open in this thing, it had to be level. Well, we used to have to do this with manually. Had literally a bubble level, and we're out there pushing switches and, you know, increments like, how does that look? It took us 8 hours to build this thing out. In 2007, Craftsman Industries builds this, oh, holy moly, boop, one button, laser beam shooting all over the place. My mom looks at it, it's like these computer eyeballs look at the ground, and boop, 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 this thing in 4 minutes. Things opened up, ready for business. I used to spend 8 hours sweating my butt off getting that truck leveled. So, but yes, to answer your question, I've done a lot, guys. I really have. I've pulled oversized, overdimensional. I've been 130,000 pounds. I've been 150 feet long. I've had military escort. Just amazing. But that PlayStation truck is the pinnacle of my career. I've met some really, I met Will Smith, and I mean, just unbelievable, unbelievable. The movie stars and rock stars and sports figures, and yes, ma'am. Oh, we got yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
How do you maintain a work-life balance?
Great question. Very tough. Very tough. I was single. And that being said, guys, that being said, Many, many years ago, my ex-wife and I drove together. We team drove together. And I can tell you right now, it's a great way. It's a great way to we refer to our dispatchers or fleet managers, driver managers as travel agents, okay? I have seen the Grand Canyon 6 times. I have been to just about every national park in this country, and I've done it on my company's dime. I get a load out somewhere and then I ask for time off and I take that truck somewhere where I can secure it and I rent a car and I go see the great redwoods, Sequoia National Forest, Yosemite, just wherever. But balancing, to answer your question, it's tough. Solitary confinement for a view for you guys out there who want to drive a truck, not that you do, but there are doctors, lawyers, professionals that drive truck. They're getting into the business because it's a great way to make a living and it offers you freedom. Yes? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So if you have to coordinate with another driver, say you're going to drive drop off something and they're going to pick it up and go, how do you coordinate like where they are? Because it can be like spread out all throughout the US.
Awesome question. And let me say this to all of you entering the workforce, which you're hopefully going to be doing in a not too distant future. Communication. And I don't care, I do not care what you do for a living or in what capacity you serve a company or your own company. Communication is the key. And this is where digital communications have been instrumental in making that happen. When a load has to be coordinated, it has to be gotten to where it needs to be. If something happens, and this is the beauty too, when something goes wrong with my truck, everything's computerized. Oftentimes, my maintenance department knows I have a problem before I do. My truck is talking to my maintenance department. They'll let me know, you need to get into Volvo right now. Get that truck into Volvo right now, we've got a fault. And I'll have a warning, but the truck's acting normal. Get the truck into Volvo. We want you to head into San Antonio, bring it into Volvo. We have another driver en route going to repower that load. Okay? That's how quick they do it. Boom. It's all communication and technology is driving that. It's making it happen. Where loads used to drop all the time. The on-time delivery is so crucial right now because of logistics and trucking and making these delivery schedules happen, and because there is no reserves. There are no reserves. They've literally gotten rid of distribution centers. The big distribution centers are gone. So I got to get that load to where it needs to be on time without excuse. They don't want to hear it. And I'm telling you, FedEx is a good example. If you're paying for that delivery on time, and I've done it, it doesn't make the delivery, you don't pay. It's that simple. A whole truckload like that, it's expensive if it doesn't make the time. Yes, sir.
I'm wondering what your thoughts are on autonomous vehicles and how they may impact our industry in the future.
Fantastic question. From what I understand, the first driverless tractor trailer was tested in Las Vegas this past summer, 2015. Driver was in the seat, but much like Google has their cars running, and I've seen them, the pilotless cars. I have literally, it's kind of, the first time I saw that, it was a little scary. Nobody in that car. Nobody. Not even in the back seat. And there it goes. Got some funky antenna looking thing on it, but it's just scooting down the highway. I can't imagine that in a semi, but I listen to a lot of talk radio, and I've heard about this. It's coming. It's coming. But the actually piloting the vehicles within city limits will be done by driver. But for safety's sake, they're literally going to be operating these trucks via satellite. Boom. Out in the wide open spaces. So a trucker will be, I guess, with his feet up on the dash reading the Wall Street. No, he's not going to read the Wall Street Journal. They don't even, are they printed anymore? Yes, sir.
Could you talk about the different sizes of logistics companies, like the big carrier? What percentage are the big mega carriers and what percentage are smaller operations?
Wow. that's tough. That's really tough. I could say, I work for Conway Freight, who was just bought by OBX. Menlo Logistics is huge, it's worldwide, and I've had the opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, as a truck driver, I could have gone to Asia, I could have gone to Russia, I could have gone to Europe. They were expanding, back in the day, they were expanding operations worldwide, okay? So, logistics, the opportunities are amazing, and you can't even imagine. I want you to think anything you can pop into your head, whether it's how it's consumed or how it's used. There are logistics companies out there that make it happen. They get it from point A to point B, and it runs the world. So, but size-wise, that's tough. I mean, I really can't answer that honestly, but I know that a company like, and Conway Freight was just sold for $3 billion. OBX bought it. Menlo was probably, and they're worldwide operations. I mean, I would say it's one-third of its operational size is Menlo Logistics. So it's huge. It's huge. When you talk about worldwide operations, I mean, I think about the United States. That's what I think about, because I operate within the borders generally of the United States of America, lower contiguous 48 states. But it's a big world. It's gotten a lot smaller, but it's a big world. So logistically, that's a tough question. I don't know, really. Yes, sir.
When you receive an assignment from your company, are the drivers generally responsible for the routing information, or does the company give you routing information?
We have the autonomy to make decisions. The question is routing. It depends. It depends. Could be the shipment. I picked up a load of computer equipment in LA, 3 trucks, 2 Phantoms, 1 loaded, okay? That truckload was worth approximately $4 million, okay? 2 trucks pull out the same time I do. One goes north, one goes south, and I've got the load and I'm going with it to Houston. My directive is, you travel Interstate 10 from LA, do not stop, do not pass go, do not collect $200, do not go to the bathroom until you get to your designated point, period, okay? And it's not uncommon to have shadow escorts. Unmarked cars, these are not police, but they are security services that shadow us. So, yeah, and you don't know that. The driver doesn't know it. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they
Did they just
don't.
assign them to you randomly, or
What's that?
did they assign them to you randomly, or does it depend on what you're?
It depends on what you're pulling. Depends on what you're pulling. But routing, the question is routing. We have the decision-making process is left up to the driver in most cases, but depending on the freight, where it's going, a lot of times how much it weighs, routing will be given to us in advance. Boom, this is the route you take, don't vary from it. That's the other thing. If I do, I can be held responsible for any charges incurred over and above what is anticipated for that load run. Good question, thanks. Yes?
With regard to the other things that you have to pay attention to while driving, would you say that driving over the years has become easier for any driver? Like, there are many things someone has to interact with. So would you say it's much more comfortable for the long distance and
Has it gotten easier?
yeah. Like with regard to the interfaces you interact with.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, guys, can you imagine, think of summer here. Think of summer here. It's hot. Well, in Arizona, it gets to be 114 degrees, and when you don't have air conditioning, that makes for an uncomfortable ride. And I hate to tell you why, it'll wear you out in a hurry. So having a, climate control system that totally keeps me comfortable, having Recaro 16-way adjustable seats that massages my butt as I'm driving down the road, makes me a happy clam, I gotta tell you. Really. So yes, it has gotten a lot better, a lot better. Ergonomics, the way they design these these trucks, the fact that I have an office in my truck, I flip a lever and that my seat spins around. I've got a pull-out desktop that comes out of a cabinet that's mounted right behind my driver's seat. And I'm like, man, this is, why go home? I got it. Thank you. Anybody else? We're getting low on time, guys, and I you know what I do? I want to apologize to you because I varied from my presentation quite a bit. I didn't mean to do that. I've gone through a lot. I've changed jobs. I've moved from Florida to New York. I'm not making excuses, but I haven't taken the time really that I was really required of me to prepare effectively and efficiently to deliver this message. So in that regard, I do apologize to you guys, but I've done this to support Ms. Harms, the instructor. I've known her a very long time, and when we, collaborated on this, I just offered to come and give this talk because, well, I'm doing this to support her. Anybody else?
How do they track the efficiencies of a driver? Like, do you know how efficient you are being when you're out there on the road in terms of like in relation to the other drivers?
Yes. And if you can think of the digital age, now everything is trackable, everything. So they look at the time it took me to make this trip from New Jersey to Cincinnati, Ohio. And I did it in exactly 10 hours and 39 minutes. Somebody else didn't make it in time at all. They stopped too many times, the 14-hour clock expired, they weren't able to make that run within, they literally had to take a 10-hour break before they could get to Cincinnati, and I did it in one drive time. So it is trackable. It is very trackable, and computers have made that possible. And that's really what drives the efficiencies of logistics and transportation is technology. It's that simple. Guys, all I can say to you is bring your A game. When you get into whatever it is you're doing, bring it, And I've worked with a lot of interns, I really have, in different transportation scenarios and situations. I've worked with some really dynamite people. You guys bring some innovation and technology advances that just blow my mind, but come with a positive attitude. And I can tell you right now, if you come with that holier-than-thou attitude, because you got this degree, I don't have a degree, but I've been doing this a long time. We need to get together and say, hey, what have you got to offer me? Here's what I know. What do you know? Let's just make this happen. Let's just make the world a better place. And that's all I can just wish for you. Go out there and give it your A game every day. That's what I try to do, guys, is just give it my best shot every day. Every day. Yes, sir.
When you say you can go to like Super Bowls and NASCAR races and stuff, are they giving you tickets to go watch that stuff?
Credentials. Sony sponsored Super Bowl 37. Was sponsored in part. There was PlayStation entrance. $5 million. Sony paid to have an entrance to the Super Bowl. I have credentials that say PlayStation. I walk in and out of there like I own the joint. It's that simple. And guys, that's it.